Why do we fight? To protect home and family. To preserve balance and bring harmony. For my kind, the true question is, what is worth fighting for?
Hello guys, this is Donald's Movies, and today I have the last World of Warcraft race RP guide. So I'm almost done with the series, and with this one I'm going to finish all of the races for the RP series. So in this video I will be covering the Pandaren, and I will be giving you an insight into their lore and their history, and then I'm going to explain a bit more about their lifestyle and traditions. And lastly I'm going to help you name your character, pick a class and a personality. So without further ado, let's just get into their story. So the Pandaren are actually quite an old race, if not one of the oldest ones out there, and are said to be related to the raccoons, or at least their distant relatives. So approximately around 15,000 years ago, it's around that timeline, it's not exactly 15,000 years ago, it could have been more. They lived on the lands of Pandaria together with the Mogu, who were very brute and warmongering people. So the Mogu were split into certain clans and had their own warlords who fought each other all the time, until one day Lei Shen came. Now Lei Shen eliminated every warlord one by one and united all of the Mogu, creating the first laws, unified language, and establishing the very first Mogu Empire. Now he observed the Pandaren and thought they were too clever for his liking, and thus he enslaved them. Since he kinda sensed they could start a revolution at any moment, he made their slave lives very strict. Now, they couldn't use weapons, they were punished with death for every minuscule crime, and generally mistreated until one day when the empire grew weaker. Now, the Pandaren seized this opportunity, and since they didn't have any weapons, they learned how to use their fists and chi energy in order to empower themselves and stand a chance against the Mogu. And so they did, defeating the Mogu and becoming free people. Now around 12,000 years ago, through diplomacy and combat, they established their first empire that would last for many years. Now unknown to some, the Pandaren actually knew the Night Elves and interacted with them, and they witnessed the powers of the Well of Eternity firsthand. However, they saw that the Night Elves were getting obsessed with it, and they saw that it would lead to destruction, so they distanced themselves to their own continent. And when the Burning Legion invaded, the Emperor discovered a way to shroud the entire land in dense mists, blocking anything from coming their way. And until recently, they thought that the entire world was destroyed by the Sundering and that they were the only ones left out there. Now, there are very few Pandaren wanderers like Chen Stormstout, who was featured in Warcraft 3 and who has helped form the Orcish homeland, the Durotar. Although that was one of the only recorded ones, as the Pandaren generally stick to their own continent. Now around the time of Cataclysm, the mists vanished, and when the Alliance and the Horde naval fleet fought, they actually discovered the new continent of Pandaria, and the war shifted in a different direction. Later on, the Pandaren joined both factions, and they had groups who taught the rest of the races the ways of the monk, and thus the first monks came to be, or at least the other race ones. Now, what is also relevant is that all of the playable Pandaren are from the Wandering Isle, which is in fact a turtle that long ago a Pandaren Liu Lang used to see beyond the mists, because he wanted to go away from the mists. And the turtle grew, and so did the people joining him, making an entire colony of Pandaren explorers. Now, Chen Stormstout is native to the Wandering Isle, and so are all the players, but you can always RP in a different way if you want to. And it is all there is for the lore. Now, the Pandaren do actually have deep roots in the world of Azeroth, even though most of their lore was kind of written a few years back, since like 2012 once it was released and before that, and they were sort of incorporated into the existing world, because they kinda only recently added them. And I do have some lore lessons on my channel if you want to check that out about the Pandaren and Chen Stormstout, although they're kinda super old and lacking in quality, so do take that in mind because they made that kind of ages ago. Now let's get a bit of an insight into their culture and their lifestyle. As I'm guessing everyone knew already, the Pandaren are very calm people that respect the inner peace and look down upon any sort of negative energy. Now that doesn't really mean that they are pacifist and that if something was threatening them they wouldn't fight back. Now in their culture, every moment is cherished like it's their last, so if they're drinking something, they're going to focus their energy into that, or even if they're taking a nap, they're gonna focus all of their energy into that. And same is for combat, when they fight they go all in, like turning 180 from a calm Pandaren into this aggressive bear with ferocious roars. Now in most cases they are very friendly, and even though they do fight, those fights are usually friendly as well, and on good terms between each other, so there are no hard feelings at the end. Now the Pandaren also value cooking and making ale, and that is exactly why they're so well known as cooks and brewmasters. Pandaren like Chen Stormstout go all around the world to find ingredients and invent something new and perfect, although that's kind of a recent phenomenon as that hasn't really happened before. Now appearance wise, they're pretty much humanoid panda bears that are around 6 feet tall and they're covered in fur from head to toe, and instead of hands they have paws with 4 fingers and claws at the top. And monk style of fighting is highly valued in their society because that is what freed them ages ago from slavery, and thus you will find many reputable and respected Pandaren monks. Now at first they used to use just hands because they couldn't use any weapons at the time because the Mogul wouldn't allow them to have weapons, but after some time they incorporated weapons into their fighting techniques. Now when it comes to naming your character, Pandaren names are quite similar practice wise, meaning that they're born with a surname and are given a name by their parents. So names like Chen, Jin or Polo work great for males, while names like Juan, Shui or Mei work great for females. Also surnames like Honeybrew, Swiftpaw and Earthsong fit quite well for the Pandaren. Alright, that is all there is for that. Now let's get a bit of an insight into their personalities, as in all of these videos by now, I'm just going to give you some guideline personalities that you should use as a starting point and you shouldn't really copy directly. And if you want to roleplay your character seriously, I would suggest taking some time to figure out a really good backstory, as it is kinda highly related to the character's personality because what happened in the past really reflects his actual personality. Now, first and foremost, and pretty much what I always cover, is the peaceful one. Now, this personality is pretty much the main personality of the Pandaren and the most well known. So, this type of a character cherishes inner peace and pretty much hates everything that is related to conflict, and even if there is conflict, it is ended with no hard feelings, so it's definitely not like a warlike personality. Now, it's a pretty common one, although you still have to kinda be mature in order to pull it off correctly and kinda let your ego aside. Alright, the next one is the adventurous one. Now this one is perfect if you are being that you're from the Wandering Isle like the rest of the Pandaren, like the playable ones, as you have sort of a daring personality. Being adventurous, even though seen, is quite rare within the Pandaren society, as they have been blocked off for 10,000 years with only a few people living in that time. Even though it is rare, it is actually quite fitting as Pandaren enjoy every moment of their life, so you would like to explore, find new things and generally be just curious. Alright, and the last personality there is the protector one. Now this one is kind of the aggressive one I covered before, and is kind of related to Terran Zoo as he has this type of a personality. So you do still cherish inner peace and the lack of conflict, but would be on the front lines to defend your own ideas and morals, and you would also not trust just anyone, and you're kind of a more closed off personality and not really daring but very brave when it comes to combat, meaning that you wouldn't just trust any stranger, but if you feel like it's a threat you would fight it quite swiftly. And that is all there is for the personalities. As I said, these are just guideline personalities and should be used as a starting point, and if you want you can even be an evil Pandaren, as they do exist but are rare and kind of out of the ordinary, meaning they would be interesting to roleplay as but kind of harder to pull off right. Alright, now before I end the video, let's just get into the classes. So as always, I won't cover all of the classes and only the certain ones in order to keep the videos consistent and kind of at a consistent length, although you can always research certain classes if you want. So as always, let's start out with the warriors. Now warriors are quite different for the Pandaren and aren't really similar to others, as they don't really fight with rage but with a good sense of inner peace. So if you're a warrior, you can go about it in a few ways. You can either be a basic soldier using a sword and a shield, or you can be a so-called war dancer, which is a Pandaren version of like a blade master. Now war dancers are very skilled warriors and are called that way because they move so swiftly and they even look like they're dancing. And another choice you have is to either be a pikeman, as they are a part of the Pandaren army as well and they kind of fight from a bigger distance. And they don't like use a sword but pike instead, which is pretty obvious I guess. So all in all, a warrior is a pretty common class, and yet it can be roleplayed in so many ways. Alright, next one and the most important one is the monk. Now monks are really what makes the Pandaren and what freed them ages ago from slavery. Now as I said before, they had no weapons, yet their hands were strong from working, and their minds sharp by being close to their enemy and pretty much working for their enemy, and thus they managed to actually overthrow them and make their own empire. Now monk can be roleplayed in many ways. You can either be like an original monk, so no weapons, or you can be sort of the newer type of a monk that he has incorporated weapons into his arsenal, or even be a brewmaster that uses ale to help him in battle, So this is a really good class to roleplay as for a Pandaren. It is kind of a signature class, and they're very important in their history and they're quite respected. Alright, next one is the Rogue. Now, rogues might seem a bit unfitting for the Pandaren because of their not so slick build, but they do actually make excellent rogues. Now, in most cases, they have years of training and are quite good at being unseen and staying in the shadows, so just like the monks, they are swift and only need one good hit to eliminate their foe. Now, unlike other races that I covered before, they aren't really pickpockets and thieves and mercenaries, because they are very honorable people, the Pandaren, and you should probably consider the rogues more of like the warriors in the shadows. And the last class I'm going to cover is the Mage. Now, mages are quite uncommon in the Pandaren society, but do actually make sense, because once the Night Elves and the Pandaren were very close allies, and they learned the ways of Arcane from the Night Elves, but once they saw what happened with the Burning Legion and how the entire Arcane magic worked as a beacon and turned the Burning Legion towards them, they decided to back away and practice it quite safely, and ever since then they have been doing just that and they still remember that stuff. So this class is not really the best choice for a Pandaren, but it would definitely work. Alright, that is all I have for the classes. Now, I haven't covered a few like the priests and the hunters, but you can always learn more about them through some research, and you can also roleplay these classes just as you want to, because that is pretty much what RP is about. You don't really have these limits, although I'm kind of giving you the guidelines and the lore and the story just to see what you can and can't do, or I mean you can do anything but just what people would see it as, because you can always roleplay to be like a dragon or something that doesn't make sense if you want to, but if you want people to take you serious, you should probably stick to these guidelines and kind of work from them. Alright, that is all I have for this guide. Now this is the last one in the race RP series, and I pretty much finished the RP series once I do the Death Knights in the next video, but with this one I finished the entire race RP guides. Now, I will still make an occasional RP video here and there, maybe some tips, or how to like join a guild, or maybe some transmog stuff, or something, so any feedback on that would be quite appreciated, because I do plan on making more RP videos. Anyways, don't forget to like, favorite and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel and keeps the videos going, and check out my Twitch.tv stream, as I stream there a few times a week, multiple games, and you can also ask me all sorts of questions like RP questions, or just general lore questions, or whatever you want to ask. Thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and see you next time.